When we think about toxic relationships, we think about manipulation. We think about gaslighting. We think about our past relationships and that toxic cycle. But I think there's one more thing that you might not even be aware that you're doing to put yourself into those toxic relationships. To be aware of what that is, you'll want to watch this video. Hi there friends, Ashley Berges, glad to be back today. And today I'm going to talk about how our personal belief system can keep us into toxic relationships and toxic relationship cycles. You know, more often than not, we have a tendency of looking at outside influences, like people that are manipulating us, folks who are using gaslighting as manipulation, that toxic cycle, and knowing that there must be something that we need to take care of within ourselves, but we're really not sure what that something is. Well, in this video, we're going to examine what that something is and understand how to be aware of it and how it does lead us into these toxic relationships. So let's begin by talking about our belief system. Everybody's belief system is different. It's all unique. That belief system is also something that we've grown up with. And our beliefs are actually formed in a series of statements. And these statements are statements that we say to ourselves over and over and over again. More often than not, these beliefs, when we're talking about toxic relationships and these cycles, are self-damaging, right? They're self-damaging, but they're also self-limiting. They also become self-fulfilling prophecies, like we believe it and therefore we achieve it. And they also make us usually feel bad about ourselves. So I want you to think about that. Now, some of the beliefs that we have about ourselves are probably quite positive, but there's also various different beliefs about ourselves that are not only limiting, but also self-damaging and can get in the way of us living our true life. So let me give you some examples as to those self-limiting belief systems so you can understand what I'm exactly talking about, and you can begin to find those belief systems within your own self and begin to eradicate those to begin to live your true life. The first belief that I want to talk about is that I am only valuable when I am doing things for other people. I am only valuable when I'm doing things for other people. So AKA my value is based on helping others and doing things for others, not for myself. I don't see value within myself as a human being, only when I'm doing things for other people. Okay, so we understand that. Okay, so I want you to really think about what that implies. Okay, so that means that you don't see value in yourself. You only see value when you're giving to other people and helping them. And remember, a lot of times in our lives when we're dealing with toxic relationships, right, when we're dealing with these situations, a lot of the people that were in our past, even maybe a mother or father, grandma or grandfather, or someone else in your past that you feel like you need to take care of because you feel guilty if you don't, but they also treated you very badly. Okay, so when you're around them, it might trigger like the past. It could also trigger you into things that happened in the past that still haven't been resolved. That person probably hasn't made amends, hasn't apologized, and hasn't taken responsibility for their actions. And so you've had to kind of go forward finding treatment or a therapist or trying to work on yourself to try to overcome the sadness that you feel from that, either that neglect or that abuse or that anger that you dealt with growing up. Okay, so you still have this thought process that you're only valuable when you're helping others. So if you're not giving everything to that toxic parent, you feel guilty, right? You feel guilty that you're not giving them everything, right? So that becomes a guilt pattern. Because also remember, when we're growing up as children, we felt like we had to do everything for our parents because our parents were everything, right? And we also felt like if they left, it was because they were upset with us, that we had done something wrong. Okay, so it's that black and white thinking. So remember, the way that we were raised, if we don't deal with those thought processes continue into our adult life. Okay, so if you felt like you were the glue in the family and that whatever you did directly affected your mother's attitude or your father's attitude, okay, you still somehow feel that way. Okay, so now let's go back into the situation. You're dealing with a toxic parent that never took responsibility for any of their actions, their abuse, their neglect, their manipulation, whatever it was, physical, mental, emotional, sexual abuse, whatever that was. Okay? And so now you're in a catch-22 because you still have the belief that you're only valuable when you're doing things for others. So you're unhappy with the parent, right? But you're also unhappy with not helping the parent because you feel like your value is derived from that. So ultimately, you've told yourself and made law that you have no value outside of helping this parent. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's almost like you're putting yourself into a box. The person has never taken responsibility for their actions and what they did. You are still dealing with the situation and probably triggered by several things when dealing with them. You probably do not need to be exposed to them for very long periods of time, but yet you feel like you have to because of the guilt and the shame based on the fact that you don't feel like you have any value because you're not helping them. And so this is the kind of belief that we have to really work on to realize that, one, the first part of the belief that's false is that you have no value. How can you have no value? And how can your value only be based on the fact that you're helping others? Do you see also kind of the other things that we're thinking about here? The codependence, right? Allowing people to walk all over us. This is a good statement for that because that's what happens is that if we believe that people won't love us unless we do things for them. Okay? And that is a catch-22 because what happens is we allow people to use us. We are normally connected and into toxic relationships because what have you when you're dealing with a narcissist, what? They want you to love on them, dote on them, do everything for them, right? And do they care much about the other person and their feelings? No. When you're dealing with somebody with that type of personality disorder, somebody with this I'm not valuable, only when I'm doing things for others am I, are going to be connected to that type of toxicity. Do you see what I'm saying? Because that type of person that might be toxic likes a person with this type of low self-esteem, low self-worth, and inability to see value within themselves because they become a perfect doer, minion for that person. Do you see what I'm saying? Unfortunately, what happens is eventually that person will get bored with the person and will end up devaluing and basically discard at some point. But see how this belief limits this person on all levels? From finding happiness, from being secure in their own right, from pulling back from the toxic parent, and from finding real healthy relationships? Okay, let's talk about another example. If I was good enough, I would have already been married. Okay. If I was good enough, I would have already been married by now. Okay, so think about that. One, since you're not married, you don't feel like you're good enough. And what happens when we feel like our value depends on marriage? Well, we end up trying to rush into anybody. We'll rush to get married. We'll meet whoever. We'll deal with whatever deficits this person has. We'll overlook it. Red flags flying. We're like, I don't see anything. It seems fine. It's not a big deal. We'll jump into any relationship, no matter how toxic it is, to offset this thought process. And so that happens to a lot of people. If I was good enough, I'd be married, right? If I was good enough. So what do? We go looking for the next person. Can I get married? I just want to get married because this is going to validate me. And what happens? Well, ultimately, the person becomes unhappy because they married somebody just to marry them out of the sense of being valuable because they thought that their value was based in another person. And it happens more often than not. And you see it, and the sad thing about it is that because of our society, like you look at TV, you look at movies, even when we were growing up, think about some of the Disney films and that sort of thing where, the princess marries the prince or, and there's like this love affair and they fall in love, even Beauty and the Beast, but it's all based on these characters, right, falling in love and finding somebody and hooking up forever, right, and that's the thing. And so I think that most women out there believe that if I'm not married, there's something wrong with me. And I think part of that is not only societal driven, part of that is also being raised by a mother and father, or a mother that said that, or a father that said that. Maybe mom was so into marriage because it defined her value. Maybe she was defined by the men that she dated and then kind of put that onto her daughter. And then her daughter believes and grows up over time. And as the years tick away, a good enough thing keeps dwindling down more and more because she feels like she's not. And I find it interesting too, especially with dating sites nowadays. Everybody wants to know all these answers to the person that they're dating. They want to know who they are, where they're from, why they're not married, why they're divorced, how did they get divorced, what's the reasoning behind it. And one of the questions that comes up is if somebody isn't married already, why aren't you? What's wrong with you? And you see how all of a sudden, if you're in the mindset of I'm not good enough because I'm not married yet, do you see how that question alone can almost be just like a dagger to the heart? Because you're wondering in your own self, in your own right, what is wrong with me? But do you see how being married or not married doesn't define you? Like having a spouse or not having a spouse doesn't define you. But see, we have to get past that and understand where this thought began. Because all of us are valuable on our own right, okay? But we have to see it. So we have to be grounded in our own ability to understand our validity and to let go of these belief systems that are holding us back. Because the last thing you want to do is to jump into a marriage that you're not happy with, that you don't love the person, that the person is either cruel or manipulative, right? Just to get married for the sake of marriage, to feel good, okay? Because that's going to be short-lived, and it's not going to last the test of time. So definitely thinking about that. And so we need to look at those types of beliefs, because those are the types of beliefs that lead us back into toxic relationships, because we'd rather be in hell than try to understand our belief system and actually find someone that's worthy of our time and our relationship. And the last belief that I want to talk about today is I am scared of being abandoned, okay? Scared of abandonment. Scared of someone leaving me. Okay, I don't want to be left alone. I don't want to be on my own. And this is a big one. And this is a huge limiting belief. The first reason why it's limiting is that when we're scared of being left alone and scared of abandoned, we'll pick anybody, no matter how toxic they are, and we will hold on to them like grim death to keep them with us. Because we fear ever being alone. I mean, you will stay with somebody who is completely and utterly toxic, who is fully manipulative, probably uses gaslighting, and probably some abuse in the relationship. And you'll keep going back to it because you don't want to be alone and you don't want to be abandoned. I've seen many people stay in abusive relationships because of this fear alone. Two other things that can come out of this belief system. The first thing is that when you meet people, you're usually going to bring to you other people who are also scared of being alone and scared of being abandoned, which doesn't make for a good couple, okay? So that becomes extremely problematic. Another thing that we do when we have this fear of abandonment is we usually venture into relationships with people who are going to ultimately leave us, okay? Making it a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'm going to give you one little example off that from like a friendship point of view. It doesn't always have to be romantic. So think about from a friendship point of view, if your limiting belief system is that, you know, friends never stay, they always leave, you know, they're never around, you give all this to them and they always seem to leave. Well, what happens is that you're finding people, right, that are usually probably toxic, abusive, using, manipulative, narcissistic, right? And then you're trying to keep that relationship with them going, trying to do things for them and help out, and eventually what? They discard you. And as you see, it goes right back to the fulfilling prophecy, the self-fulfilling prophecy where we have created this reality. Because of that fear of abandonment, we've brought that back to us. And so we have to get right with that and understand, first off, where did the fear of abandonment come from? Okay, did that come from the fact that mom was constantly leaving the house and not telling you when she was going to come home? Was dad constantly leaving for weeks on end and showing up randomly and you saw mom crying all the time and you didn't know if you were going to have a dad? I mean, were you left with other people to raise you? I mean, there's various levels of abandonment. What was it that started this? Okay, because we have to deal with that first. Otherwise, we're going to bring this baggage into every relationship. And the problem is the relationships that you're getting into are probably not very healthy. Because remember, an extremely healthy person, right, is not going to get into a relationship with somebody that has abandonment issues. because it's going to be a red flag to them. Because somebody that's healthy wants somebody else that's a whole individual person, not somebody that globs onto somebody else's identity or what have you. So you would want to have somebody that's a real solid person in their own right. But in order to get solid and to be stable, we have to deal with some of this past stuff that keeps us in this negative belief system that's limiting us and keeping us back from finding real relationships, from finding true friendships, right? Because we have to understand, how are we limiting ourselves? Yes, are other people manipulative? Sure. Are there toxic people out there? Yes. But we also have to clean our inventory and be aware of our personal belief inventory to understand if we're bringing any of this to us. So I hope this video has helped you, and please share it with your family and friends. I'll be doing some more videos as well on belief system and things that you can do to really get to the heart of that belief system and begin to start letting it go. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you like this video, give us a like. In the comment section below, let me know if any of these beliefs resonate with you. Also, are there any limiting beliefs that you've dealt with and successfully overcome? Putting that in the comment section and sharing that with our community can help a lot of people. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and don't forget to live your true life.